As council members, you each play a crucial role in project development and funding. Because of this direct role, it is important that you understand the conflict of interest policy. What is a conflict of interest? Conflict of interest is when you have any financial or personal interest, direct or indirect, that would make it difficult for you to make decisions about our projects and funding, fairly or without being influenced by personal feelings. Some things that can impact your decisions include your employment, where you work, your source of income, money. Personal relationships, something that impacts your friends or family. And professional relationships, if you serve in a leadership position at an organization or serve on a council or advisory group. These can all potentially influence your decisions here. Take for instance the following example. Your family member is the director of an organization which has applied for a grant. You are interested in the grant, you would like to be a reviewer. Could you have a conflict of interest? Would you be able to make an unbiased selection? Would others think you would be able to make a fair decision? This is an example of a conflict of interest. Why? Because you might not be able to be unbiased and may unintentionally prefer the application of your family member's organization over other applications. Or others might think you would be unable to compare the different applications fairly. If you think that you have a conflict of interest, what should you do? The first step is to immediately notify the staff. Second, you should notify the committee or work group chair. Third, you must recuse yourself from the conversation. Recuse means removing yourself from the discussion and room because of a potential conflict of interest. Recusal is different from abstention. While recusal is removing yourself from all discussion, abstention is just formally declining to vote, either for or against a proposal or motion. People who abstain still participate in the conversation, stay in the room, and have access to information about the project. Why is recusal important? Because it helps to ensure conflict-free choices are being made and supports us to meet the state and federal government's ethical standards. At what points should you recuse? You should recuse yourself at the following stages of the project development: work groups and concept papers, set-asides, RFP motions, Level 2 reviews, and applicant funding motions. This should happen at the level of committee meetings, executive meetings, and full council meetings. What happens if you don't recuse? Consider another example. You are sitting on a work group which creates an RFP. Then you find out that your employer wants to apply for the grant. Can your employer receive the grant? The answer is no. Your employer cannot receive this grant because you did not recuse from the conversation and you have a conflict of interest. Why is it a problem that you didn't recuse? Because you could share information with your employer that other applicants do not have access to, which would give your employer an advantage in completing their application over others. If you have a conflict of interest and do not recuse, your employer would not be considered an eligible applicant. Not sure if you should recuse or not? When in doubt, always ask a staff person. It is better to check before the potential conflict of interest arises than to wait. What happens when you do recuse? Once you recuse yourself, you excuse yourself from council discussions, reviews, and votes concerning that project. You will also no longer receive information from the council or staff about that specific project during its development. This means that you will receive redacted copies of meeting minutes and packets, where all information about the project you have recused from is removed. Let's review. A conflict of interest is anything which could influence your decisions about projects and funding, such as your family or employer. If you have a conflict of interest, you should recuse yourself immediately. Recusal means you remove yourself from all conversations about a project and at all stages of its development. This helps ensure that our funding is distributed fairly and effectively. Still have questions about conflict of interest? Be sure to contact the staff with any questions or concerns you may have.